What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how quarterbacks can throw 10 miles per hour harder with these simple throwing mechanics tips. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a quarterback and you'd like to train with us this offseason, we are coming out to 15 different cities across the U.S. for 2-day long QB and wide receiver camps. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested and would like to train with us this offseason. We're coming out to San Francisco, Miami, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Portland, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Buffalo, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles. So again, very first link in that description below, fellas. We'd love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. Let's get started with this video. So when it comes down to throwing hard and throwing with velocity, quarterbacks have to understand that their power does not come from anything up here. In a way, it kind of does in terms of their shoulders, and we're going to get to that as this video progresses. But most of your power is going to come from your base, aka your legs, and obviously your hips. But it's not so much just about you being able to rotate with your hips. It's not just so much about you being able to drive off of your back leg or your back quad. It's about the timing of your hips firing through. It's about the timing of you transferring your weight with your lower half, combined with you taking the upper body or the football back with your upper half. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. So Joe Burrow has honestly one of the best throwing motions in the NFL. And also Anthony Richardson has one of the best throwing motions in the NFL when it comes to generating power effectively. And we're going to be breaking down both of their motions. So we're going to be starting out with Joe Burrow first. So the most important thing for a quarterback is the base. I think quarterbacks are built from the ground up. You want to start with the base on every single quarterback that you train. If you are a quarterback listening to this, you want to start with your base. So what's a perfect base? Number one, you want to make sure that you have your weight loaded onto this back leg. I suggest about 60 to 70% of your weight onto this back leg. Now, why do you want to have 60 to 70% of your weight back? You also want to make sure that you have your back foot located underneath your back shoulder. You want your back shin to be completely straight. You don't want your knee caving inward towards your front foot. But why do you want to have your weight loaded back here so you could be light on the front foot? Or you want your weight back and you want to be light on your front foot. The reason why you want your weight back is so you can take that weight, that 60 to 70% that you have back here, and transfer it to the front foot. But remember what I said. It's not just about transferring. It's definitely not about pushing off of your back foot. It's about the timing of the transfer. So when your weight is loaded onto this back leg and it's underneath your back shoulder, you're in a position to efficiently rotate with your hips. Any quarterback that stands really wide, aka why I said do not have your knee caved inward. If you guys stand super wide with your feet, and you could try this right now and stand up. Stand really wide and try to rotate at your hips. Don't even worry about throwing the ball. Don't even worry about your arms. Just try to rotate. Your hips are going to lock out. But when your feet are underneath your frame like this, you're in a position, if you take a short front stride, not this long baseball stride, to be able to rotate at your hips, right? So you have to make sure that we keep this back foot under my shoulder, under your armpit, if you will. You have about 60 to 70% back here. So we can effectively rotate and transfer. Now, the other reason you want to have your weight back, because remember how I said in the beginning of this video, it's not just about your weight transferring through and your hips rotating. It's about the timing of your hips rotating. It's almost like a baseball swing. When you are quarterbacks, to be able to generate power effectively, that takes pressure off your arm. Because some of you might be thinking, well, coach, like baseball pitchers, they use their legs, they use their hips, and they push off of this back foot and have this really long stride. Well, why can't I do that as a quarterback and still get power? Well, number one, if you're taking a majorly long stride, that makes your release longer. And as quarterbacks, we obviously can't have a long release. The longer you hold the ball, the more likely you are to get killed or get your receiver killed because you're going to be late on the throws. So we need a short stride. Number two, the ball is heavier and we are trying to throw the ball higher. So we cannot, pitchers are designed to throw down. We want to be able to use my hips and use my legs and keep my upper body just nice and disciplined and level so I can just flick my wrist. And wherever I flick my wrist, that ball's going to go. But I was able to generate energy from here so I can have control further downfield. That's why it's important, okay? But now you want to think of generating power a lot like a baseball swing. It all comes down to torque. So when you're in the batter's box, you're in a similar position that Joe Burrow is in right here. Your weight's on the back leg, pitcher's here, ball comes at you. What do? When that pitcher throws the ball ball at you. You take a step with your front foot, but what do you do with the baseball bat? You keep it loaded. And then what do? Your back hip fires through because you're squishing the back bug and the bat trails last. Can't we all agree that the back hip comes through before the baseball bat? It's the same exact thing when throwing a football. Just you having your weight loaded on your back leg allows you to keep the weight back, to keep the baseball bat back, aka the football, in your throwing motion. So think about this, fellas. If you're standing in your base and let's say you have about 60 to 70% of your weight on your front foot and you're like slightly leaning forward. And you might think, why would a quarterback ever do that? Quarterbacks usually get to that point when they drop back. They drop back and they plant to throw, but all their body weight is shifted forward. If you guys want to add extra velocity to your throws, just simply try to get to this position at the top of your drop. I guarantee you will feel a difference. But guys will be leaning forward, and so they will not be able to rotate their shoulders. All their body weight is already going through, so the baseball bat comes through before the back hip, aka the football, your shoulders come through before the back hip. Remember how I was talking about timing? It's not just about rotating, it's about the timing of the rotation. I want my back hip to be firing through before my shoulder, before my elbow, and before the ball. This is how you generate power from those legs, from those hips, from your core, and take pressure off of the upper half. Now remember, like I said, this position right here is something called hip and shoulder dissociation. If you do not keep your weight back when you take a step to the target, you will not be able to get there. Your hips will not be able to fire on time. Now, one of the common mistakes that a lot of quarterbacks make is they will get to this base. They know they got to be light with the front foot. They know their weight's got to be back. They know they have to go back with the football to get to this position. But their way of creating power is pushing off of this back foot. And a lot of old school quarterback coaches and misinformed quarterback coaches, not even the old guys, there are a lot of young guys out there that teach this crap. They will say, hey, you want to push off of the inside arch of your back foot to generate power to the target. But when you guys start to throw with the back foot, and what I mean by that is like when your thought process is to push to create your front stride rather than stepping. You see how Burrow steps and maintains weight back here? You see how his shin stays straight? That's so he can rotate his shoulders back. When your front foot makes contact with the ground for a split second, you should have weight loaded here, about 70% under your back shoulder, and the football should be going back like this. Doesn't need to be perfect like Burrow's, like at a perfect L, but just you need that front shoulder to stay closed on the strike because now you can transfer that weight. You step, and then we rotate. You step, and then we drive off the back leg. You don't want to push to create the foot strike because all your body weight shifts forward, and you never get to here, causing that elbow and that shoulder to beat your hips. But when you stay back, step, the stride is separate from the back leg and back hip drive. We step first. As we step, hands go back, shoulders go back. Then we rip through. I tell my quarterbacks to think about taking this front hip and think somebody's pulling you open. And that will cause the back hip to drive through, and that will cause you to finish with more velocity on the ball. And you don't need to pull the elbow down, dip your head. So many young quarterbacks have inconsistencies up here to generate power because their lower body is flawed. Usually what happens is guys, that quarterbacks that like to push off of this back foot and take this long stride, their hips can't rotate because guess what? Their feet are too wide. They don't have that dissociation or that baseball swing because all their body weight has shifted forward at the wrong timing of the throwing motion. So guess what they do? Because all their body weight's forward, they're not using this hip, they'll take this front elbow, pull down. They'll dip their head. And all that does is flaw my release point. You dip your head this way, your release point flaws this way. And yeah, it might have a little bit of power, but it's not going to have as much power if you use your legs and your hips, and you're not going to be as consistent. I want consistent velocity, and I want velocity where the ball is accurate, not a velocity like I'm throwing a knuckleball and it spins over the head of my receivers. So let's play this thing full speed with Burrow, and then we'll talk about the similarities in Anthony Richardson's motion. Because again, I showed Joe Burrow, but some of you might be thinking, well, that's just Joe Burrow. That's just how he throws the ball. Not every single quarterback throws the ball the exact same way. And I agree with you. And look at the body types. Anthony Richardson has a much different body type than Joe Burrow. There is not a single NFL quarterback, not a single one out of the 32 starters and probably every single backup that throws the ball the exact same way and has the exact same body type. Right? Everybody's made different. Everybody looks different. Everybody throws the ball different. But what you want to try to find in these top tier guys, and that's why I want to show you this, that's why I want to explain this, you want to find the consistencies that they have in their motions. Because these guys know something that the rest don't. These guys do things that the rest don't. That's why they're playing at the level they are at. And you can make all the excuses in the world, like Anthony Richardson's a freak athlete, but watch his motion. It is the exact same in terms of mechanical sequence, in terms of his weight staying back, in terms of his stride, in terms of the timing of his hips, in terms of the hip and shoulder dissociation as Burrow's. They're different body types. They have different throwing motions. Richardson could probably throw it further than Burrow. But mechanically, when it comes to the base, the stride, the hips, and the timing, it is the exact same. So let's watch this. I'm going to play it full speed, then we'll break it down. But Richardson, obviously very, very smooth. So let's take a look at this, right? Weight's back about 70%. This is just warm-up throws. He's not even really in his base. Guys, if you want to know what a perfect, in my opinion, what a perfect motion looks like, watch Anthony Richardson throw a football. It is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever watch. So watch what he does here. He's going back, just nice and relaxed. Front stride makes contact with the ground. Where is his weight? Loaded on the back leg. Is his knee super caved forward? Is he pushing off of his back foot? No, the stride is separate from the back leg and back hip drive. And when that stride makes contact with the ground, what are his shoulders doing? His shoulders are loaded back. So there's that hip and shoulder dissociation. So guess what has to happen now? Because he kept his shoulders back, he has great timing of his hips firing through. Remember, the back hip has to go through before the shoulders do, right? Weight's got to stay on this back leg when you're making contact with the grass with the front foot, and the shoulders have to go back at the same time. It's easy to go back with the shoulders when you maintain weight right here. So he strikes, and look what happens. Hips are firing through. You see how that back hip is coming through before the elbow, before the shoulder, before the ball, and he's just firing on through. That is exactly how you guys get more velocity on your throws. That's how you get more power. That's how you can get more distance. It's all on sequence. Two very, very different quarterbacks, two very, very different body types, two very different styles, but mechanical sequence, very, very similar. And you watch any NFL starter, guys, any single one of them, you can find these scenarios or these like sequences in their motion. So there's a great example with Richardson and Burrow to see how you guys can add 10 miles per hour to your throws. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to come out and train with us this off season, we are coming out to 15 more cities across the country. So again, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. I'll see you guys next time.